The old Volvo station wagon crawled along Highway 119, its headlights cutting weak beams through the thick fog. It was a cold November night in 1998, and Emma shivered, pulling her fleece jacket tighter around her. She was heading back to Boulder after a weekend visit with her sister in Netherland. The drive was usually an easy one, but the fog tonight was something else, clinging to the mountains like a shroud. As she rounded a bend, the faint glow of brake lights pierced the mist ahead. Odd, she thought. There never seemed to be much traffic on this road, especially not this late. Emma slowed, cautiously approaching the line of cars. The air grew thick with the smell of exhaust fumes and something else, something metallic and sharp. A shiver ran down her spine. This was more than just a traffic jam. Emma strained to see through the fog. As she inched closer, the flashing red and blue lights of emergency vehicles pierced through the white. A fire truck, its lights casting eerie shadows, blocked her view. Then she saw it, a mangled wreck by the side of the road, barely recognizable as a car. A wave of nausea washed over her. This wasn't just an accident, this was bad. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. The scene was chaotic, yet strangely silent. Police officers directed traffic with urgent gestures, their faces grim. Paramedics, their faces illuminated by the flashing lights, worked frantically on someone near the mangled car. A firefighter stood apart, talking quietly into a radio. He looked up, his gaze meeting Emma's for a fleeting moment, and she saw something in his eyes that sent a chill down her spine. Despair. Emma averted her eyes from the scene. She couldn't bear to look any longer. A low rumble shook the air as a tow truck arrived, its headlights adding to the surreal glow. They were going to pull the car away, the wreckage disappearing under a blue tarp. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. Someone had lost their life tonight. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the police waved the line of cars forward. Emma slowly passed the accident, her eyes fixed straight ahead. She couldn't shake the image of the wrecked car from her mind. The fog seemed to press in closer, suffocating her. She just wanted to get home, to the safety of her apartment. The silence in the car was deafening. The only sound was the rhythmic swoosh of the windshield wipers battling the fog. Emma turned on the radio, hoping to find some music, anything to break the oppressive silence. Static crackled through the speakers. She fumbled with the dial, but every station was the same, just static. Suddenly, a movement in the passenger seat made her jump. Her heart leaped into her throat. Sitting next to her, shrouded in the swirling fog that seemed to have seeped into the car, was a figure. It was a young woman, her face obscured by shadows, her clothes dark and dripping. Emma gasped, her breath catching in her throat. The figure turned its head towards Emma, and a pair of eyes, hollow and filled with an unearthly light, met hers. Emma's blood ran cold. The eyes seemed to pierce her very soul, filled with a sorrow so deep it was almost tangible. Fear, raw and primal, surged through her. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. She was paralyzed, trapped in a nightmare. The figure reached out a hand, long and pale, towards Emma. Its touch was icy cold, sending a wave of goosebumps across her skin. Emma wanted to scream, to pull away, but she was frozen in place, her body refusing to obey her commands. The figure leaned closer, its breath cold on her cheek, and whispered something in a voice that seemed to come from far away, a voice that was barely a whisper, yet echoed in the depths of Emma's mind. The radio, which had been nothing but static moments before, suddenly crackled to life. A voice, deep and distorted, boomed through the speakers. "Turn around," it said, the words slow and deliberate, dripping with menace. "Turn around now." Emma's grip tightened on the steering wheel. She didn't know who she was more afraid of, the figure beside her or the voice on the radio. Emma slammed on the brakes, the car skidding on the wet road. She pulled into the first place she saw, a brightly lit gas station, a beacon of warmth and light in the fog-shrouded night. The figure in the passenger seat was gone, vanished. But the fear that had gripped her heart remained, cold and sharp. She was alone, yet she didn't feel alone. She felt watched, surrounded by an unseen presence. Emma sat huddled in a booth at the gas station, a cup of lukewarm coffee clutched in her trembling hands. She couldn't shake the image of the ghostly figure, the hollow eyes, the icy touch. The news played on a small TV in the corner, the sound turned down low. The report was about the accident on Highway 119. They had found the driver, a young woman, dead at the scene. Her passenger, however, was still missing. The news shifted to footage of a swift-moving river, swollen from recent rain. The reporter's voice was somber. Search and rescue teams were looking for the missing passenger, but the current was strong. They held out little hope of finding her alive. Emma stared at the screen, her blood turning to ice. The missing passenger, the young woman from her car. Emma never forgot that night on Highway 119, the chilling encounter with the phantom passenger. Even years later, the memory sent shivers down her spine. She never drove that stretch of road again without remembering the hollow eyes staring at her through the fog, the icy touch on her hand, and the voice on the radio, whispering its warning on the wind.